Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi mining community, welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Michael Townsend, who's a director of Magma Silver, who are a Canadian precious metals exploration company focused on developing the high-sulfidation Ninobamba and Jeromina silver and gold project in Peru. Michael has extensive experience in corporate finance, spanning over 30 years in capital markets, and one of the founding partners of Altus Capital Partners, a boutique investment bank based in Vancouver, Canada. He's going to give us an overview of Magma Silver, how to source and make a good deal, the current climate at the moment in terms of obviously deal flow, and what the future holds for junior exploration. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Hawcroft, who are leaders in property risk management in the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, and asset criticality assessments and more. They work across 600 sites globally and support all areas of mining and mineral extraction. So if you're looking for any property and insurance risk management services, then please visit their website at www.hawcroft.com, and all the details are in our show notes. Michael, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. You're a company in Vancouver at the moment, so anyone watching on YouTube, there's a nice backdrop behind Michael there. So, so I just wondered, as we always start these podcasts off, I just wanted you to just tell us a little bit about your career, about your background, how you got into the mining industry, up to sort of present day.
Certainly, yeah. It's hard to believe. I can't, it is 30 years. It's actually even more than 30 years I've been in the industry, probably since 1990 or 91 I started. And it was interesting. I didn't start in the mining business. We actually had a junior company listed on back then it was called the VSE, the Vancouver Stock Exchange. And we raised quite a bit of money, about 15 million altogether, to go into the pizza business in Poland. I don't know if I told you that story, but that was my first deal. And I was a director of that company by way of being a shareholder, and became a director in the early 90s. And saw stock appreciate from 15 cents all the way to $2. Obviously, just got hooked with that kind of the excitement of that. And then in the early 90s, we had a couple of big mineral discoveries, both sort of based out of Vancouver. First, there was Diamet. Chuck Fitpee discovered diamonds in the Northwest Territories of Canada. His stock went from 25 cents to $68, between maybe 1993 and 97, 96. And then we had another discovery. It was another group. They were looking for diamonds in Namibia, and they discovered the largest nickel, copper, cobalt mine in the world, that company was called Diamond Fields, and that stock went from a couple of dollars to about $160 a share. So there was a lot of excitement in Vancouver around the mining industry in the mid 90s. So we quickly transitioned. I was part of the pizza deal, left that, and got into the mineral exploration game in about 1995, and never looked back. We've had to do other things over the years when the mineral exploration business or the mining business is not top of the heap. There's been other things, but that was the main thing that got us excited about mining. A lot of success, and there's been many big success stories. Of course, Vancouver happens to be one of those places where they usually start. I guess the geologists congregate here. The exchange, the Vancouver Stock Exchange, is now called the TSX Venture Exchange. It just is where most of the companies are listed.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to speak about deal flows and how to structure deals and everything, what you look for in a deal. But first of all, why don't you just tell us a little bit about Magma Silver, which you're a director of?
Certainly. So Magma Silver started actually as a company that was exploring for cobalt, recently mentioned in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So I provided what's known as a shell in the industry. I had a friend who was an explorer. He was in the Congo. He was looking initially privately to get into the sort of copper, the copper and the cobalt. The grades are, 7, 8, 9, 10%. He was hoping to finance it personally, but after a while he hit a wall, and then he came to me, and it was just right when cobalt was like the hottest thing in the world, right around electric vehicles and that. So that was about 2018. We provided him with the vehicle or the shell, and helped him raise about $8 million to go exploring for cobalt and copper in the Congo. That didn't work out necessarily for a number of reasons. Not always are the minerals there, and also unfortunately the times change. Cobalt was really hot. Cobalt prices went really high, and then all of a sudden no one cared. And so we recently repurposed that vehicle by consolidating the shares. I took it back. And that was about a year ago today. Took us about 6 months to restructure the company. Put in an initial probably $500,000, mostly of my families and my close friends, and people that were in that deal before and needed to get repositioned in that deal. That was in December, and then by January we had come across a project. I'd known about Ninobamba for quite a few years. Some other friends of mine had it in Peru. I've been to Peru twice. It's a great place to explore. There's been some incredible discoveries there. And so we very quickly identified the opportunity that this Ninobamba was going to be for sale. The public company that was in was, again, they were shifting focus. They wanted to be more in the mining, making cash flow, smaller cash flow, and mining gold and silver. So this big, large exploration project, it's basically invest, invest, invest. There's no cash flow back from this project until it's sold to a major, or a big mine is built. So I made the deal with them in January of 25, and it took a few months to raise the necessary capital. My initial payment to them was a quarter million US and 2.5 million shares of the capital stock of our company. We closed that financing in April of 25. We raised the money, and we're now getting on the ground there. We have community. We have to deal with the community. We have a community agreement on one piece of the land. It's quite a large land package, and it's the first time that both pieces of land, Ninobamba and Jeromina, have been in the same company. So we do have a community agreement on the Jeromina. We need to get on the ground and make a community agreement with the Ninobamba community. And that's probably the most important piece. We kind of know the gold's there and silver. There's been a lot of work done. I think Newmont, Bear Creek, a number of large companies have been on the properties and spent millions of dollars over the last 25 years. But the community piece is very important.
Yeah. I mean, just to expand on the project and what you're looking to do, I suppose, for the rest of the year.
Sure. Yeah. So again, it's a very large project. It's about 4,000 hectares. It's quite high up in the Andes, which most of these large mines are. It's between 4,200 and 4,600 meters. We have excellent access, which not all projects have excellent access. We have a 2-lane highway that goes within 7 kilometers of the property. We have power. We have water. Newmont spent $7 million between 2007 and 2012. 2012, they did an internal pre-feasibility study, fatal flaw analysis. They did metallurgical work, and the thing came out positive, just very positive. But unfortunately for them, well, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, it's just too small for Newmont. Newmont back then was already a very large gold mining company, but now is the largest gold mining company in the world, and they need projects that are really going to move the needle, like minimum 3 million ounces of gold. They're hoping probably for 5 million ounces of gold. So our project currently has 550,000 ounces of gold and about 47 million ounces of silver, according to several independent reports. Neither one of them are compliant to 43101 standards. That's kind of what we're going to do. To get to your question, we're going to go back in. We're going to twin some of the old holes that were drilled in 2007. The discovery hole was 118 meters of 1.17 grams gold. Yeah, we're going to go in, twin some of those holes, and then instead of big step outs, so when Newmont's looking for 3 or 5 million ounces of gold, they have a discovery hole. They step out 200 meters or 400 meters from that hole to just to see if it's massive, and then they drill some big holes all over. We will drill closer to that original discovery hole, so we'll drill 50-meter step outs. So we'll continue to find it because we're not looking that we don't need 3 million ounces. We need 1 million ounce of gold, and so we'll tighten up those spacings on those holes. We'll twin some of the existing holes to make sure that the data is reliable. And then in 2012 there was some trenching done by another junior company, the one that we acquired it from. And a lot of those trenches ended in mineralization. You're trenching 50, 60 meters, you're sampling, but you don't get the results back from that sampling for months from the lab. So you don't know. You stop work. And a lot of these trenches, they ended in mineralization. So the last sample at the end of the trench was mineralized. So we'll have to go back in and extend those trenches to find out how much further that mineralization goes. And then ultimately, the idea would be to drill underneath those trenches to see if the mineralization extends deeper below those trenches, which usually it does. Trenches are only 3 or 4 meters deep. Mineralization can go for as we all know many meters. So there's lots of work to do, and there's lots of blue sky, i.e., the opportunity to expand that resource significantly.
You mentioned in the introduction your first deal was in pizzas, but I wondered if you could just tell us about your first success in the mining industry, and what made it a successful deal for you.
Right. So yeah, it was it was my first deal that was my own deal. It was 2001. I took over a shell with the help of a well-known group in Vancouver, and the name of the company was La Tigra Gold. And I didn't name it, but I think my friend named it La Tigra because he could get the .com, latigra.com. Anyway, that company, we did it. We had projects in I visited Peru. I had Jeff Reeder, our current geologist, was on the board of that company, and that goes back 2001. That's 24 years ago. We did look at Peru. I'd been there. We never did a project in Peru, but I had a project in Ecuador, right near Lundin Gold's big mine there. It was actually, we had a piece right inside their property. And then we had a project, sort of more of a small scale mine in Mexico. That was, yeah, 2001. By 2004, 2005, the stock had been from, again, it was, they kind of all started in this 15-cent range. I think at one point, the Vancouver Stock Exchange, you weren't allowed to do any financings below 15 cents. So that's why a lot of these companies started at 15 cents. That stock, again, did very well. I think it saw $2 a share, or very close, $1.98 or something like that was the high, 2004, 2005. And it was eventually bought out by a company called Lakeshore Gold in Ontario. Just, we merged with them. They were a big company, 150 million shares outstanding, and they issued us about $40 million worth of their stock, and eventually acquired that company. So it wasn't a short, it was a 4-year thing, and I wasn't the CEO anymore when it was acquired. My friend Chris Verico, who's involved in this project as well, he was the CEO at the time. And yeah, 40 million is not massive, but it's still a win. And yeah, that was my first deal. But we've had other more successful mining deals subsequent to that. Maybe we could talk about those if you have time.
Yeah, certainly. If you want to carry on, speak
Yeah,
about
okay. I
some
just
other
catch my
deals.
breath a little bit, but yeah. So I think there was a couple more. One that's still well around, listed on the big board. When you graduate from the TSX Venture Exchange to the TSX, that's a win because now you're on a major stock exchange. You have all the funds have to buy your stock that are index funds, and that company's called NioCorp. So that started in around 2005. we started that company. We were looking for rare earths, which are in vogue again. It's funny there. Everything kind of cycles, right? And the minerals that are in vogue at the time, and that was also because the same reason it's in vogue now is China was acting up, and I can't remember. I think it was they had a big spat with Japan back then, and they stopped exporting their rare earths to Japan, and rare earth prices went crazy or high, and so that was the thing to be looking for. So we started that company. We had a rare earth project in Saskatchewan in Canada, and that was okay. It was an exploration project, but again, I guess a lot of the times these things are stepping stones. You get in the game. It's just like anything. You got to be in the game to be in the game. And eventually that led to us acquiring a bunch of land. I usually would say staking, but in Nebraska, where this project was, you don't stake land; you have to lease it. The farmers and the landowners actually have the mineral rights, so we go in and we lease the land from them. It takes more time, and it's a lot more expensive. But this was another known deposit, similar to what we discussed with Ninobamba, that another major company, in this case it was Molycorp, had drilled it and done a lot of work on this project probably in the 70s. So we kind of knew it was there. But so we put the land package together, and I think I partnered up with the same company that I partnered up with on La Tigra. And it was a 50-50 deal. We acquired that land and put it into this shell. Then the company's now called Niocorp. So niobium, it was a rare earth and niobium deposit. Niobium's used to harden steel, kind of like moly, and molybdenum. And that company again, stock went probably from 15 cents, probably 10 cents again to like high dollars, $1.94. I think I recall when it moved to the Toronto Stock Exchange, and we brought in a new CEO. Usually we start with a CEO that's kind of more a salesman type, more than maybe a geologist or an engineer or a seasoned executive. So eventually when we get something that's serious and the project is going well, we kind of bring in a bigger name, someone that that has experience in developing mines, and so that's who we did. We brought in a gentleman, Mark Smith was his name. He was actually the former CEO of Molycorp. So that company's done extremely well. I think market cap wise, it would be in the 300 or 400 million now. I don't know what the share price trades at, but sometimes that's not relevant to the market cap. They have, probably has a couple 100 million shares outstanding by this point. But yeah, so that was probably that one. That one's going to be a mine, we think. Yeah, I've had a few others. And interestingly enough, that I have another company that I founded called Defense Metals. It's also in Prince George, and it's also in the rare earth business. And many people in the know, they just got a $250 million line of credit to build the mine. So pretty sure that's going to become a mine as well. So yeah, we've had a couple successes over the years. It takes time, and not all of them work, but I think the formula is there anyway.
Yeah. And I suppose talking about formulas, what do you, I suppose, do differently to maybe other people in terms of looking at deals, and obviously what makes you successful? Do you sort of have a secret sauce or a secret way of doing something? I suppose, what do you look for in a deal?
Yeah, I would say that we have a good reputation. We don't I had, for lack of a better word, screw people over, which a lot of people in many industries, I mean, our industry for sure, and of course I'm just in our industry, but I'm sure it's common. But I think, reputation-wise, I kind of do what I say, and I follow through, and irregardless if I think I made a bad decision or a bad agreement, I will still follow through. And I think that reputation is known in the industry because, it's a big industry, but it's not a massive industry, and of course it's very localized in Canada, and um, so that allows me to get a lot of deal flow. People want to deal with people that they know will follow through. Hey, yeah, I'll pay you 1 million shares, or because there's a lot of finders fees, and a lot of the finders, the people that make introductions, a lot of time they don't get paid. They oh, I don't know, I don't remember that, or because it's hard to contract being a finder. So I think I'm known to pay the finders what I agreed to pay them, and so I think I have a lot of deal flow. I think so. To answer your question succinctly, I have a lot of deal flow. So when you have a lot of deal flow, you get to pick the cream rises to the top. You're seeing maybe a deal a day, you get to be picky about what the deals you do. And then I do know a lot of geologists or a lot of scientists, and so I can bounce deals off of them if I suspect this looks like a really good deal. I mean, am I missing something? I can show it to some, I mean, I have lunch. I have many friends in the industry, and we can talk about what I'm seeing. But yeah, generally, I think that the real key is the deal flow, seeing lots of deals, having lots of deals presented to you. So
And I suppose, like as you mentioned, you get quite a few deals coming to you. How do you choose which deal to make, I suppose, more effort on? Is it, and looking at your sort of, I suppose, your preferences, do you look at commodity first? Do you look at the timing of the market, or is it the jurisdiction? Is there anything in particular that you look for
yeah,
when you're just assessing a deal?
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm following macroeconomic trends in a big way. So that helps me pick the commodity, and definitely like silver and gold right now are, I mean, I picked it many, I probably was 2 years early. I've been investing in silver and gold now probably for probably 3 years, because time flies. So I was in pretty early, and I have a lot of stalled investments. So I'm not only investing in my own deals, which of course is where the majority of my investment, but I'm investing in all my friends' deals as well, um, uh, and not as much, 20 grand here, 25 grand there, that kind of thing. And definitely picked gold and silver when because of whatever the macro environment, i.e. the government in the United States, and all over the world, but of course the United States being the leader, just spending way too much money, diluting their currency, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so macroeconomics, that determines what metal I think is going to be the hot metal, and gold was pretty much a no-brainer. And of course now it's gone from really, I don't know, 1600, 1700 when I was started investing 3 years ago, and we know it's 3300 today. So and the interesting thing is the opportunity maybe is that the mining stocks haven't really, they are now, today they're starting to move, but up until 2025, the mining stocks really hadn't moved. There's a select few, the big discoveries, the really high quality, top quartile companies have moved. But eventually here, all the boats, the rising tide will float all the boats higher. And so to answer your question, yes, it's commodity driven. What's going to be hot? So, and usually, you're going to be a year or two invested before that you catch that wave. So we're right at that point now, and silver being something that we decided that we wanted to be in silver 6 months ago, and silver hadn't broken out against gold. Silver's sort of been lagging, gold's been running, silver's been lagging, but just recently, like I'm talking in the last couple of weeks, silver has broken out against gold. And everyone, the big investors here, we have a very famous investor in Canada. He made, if you can believe it, over $2 billion in the last 5 years investing in gold when no one else was making any money in gold. Of course, his name, if your listeners don't know, is Eric Sprott.
Yeah.
He's a quiet guy. He used to manage a lot of other people's money. He no longer needs to do that, so he manages his own money, and he is just a massive silver bug. And we have opportunity to work with him. Just to even get in front of him is hard. And it's interesting, thing about him is most of these guys that are managing $2 billion, they won't look at a small investment. They'll say, oh, you know what, I can only invest in 37 names because it's just a lot too much work. So, i.e. that would be a $5 million minimum investment. But Eric Sprott, he will invest $500,000 in a deal. And I think in his mind, it's getting his foot in the door, on what could be and then he'll just continue to press that investment. If things are going well, on the next round he'll take 3 million, the next round he'll take 10, the next round he'll take. This guy puts like $60-70 million into one deal. So we do have a direct line to Eric. He's actually seen our Ninobamba project, and he determined that and for him, there's quite a bit of gold there, but not enough silver for him. So he's so focused, hyper-focused on silver right now as being the next big trend that he chases. He's chasing silver-focused only. So, getting back to what you were saying, and that's why we actually named the company Magma Silver. We knew that there was probably more gold content. Dollar value, 550,000 ounces of gold. It's worth about $1.5 billion. And then the silver content, we have about 47 million ounces of silver. It's right around that $1.5 billion as well. But we elected to call the company Magma Silver because we just think that silver is where the market's going. The gold is sort of run. It's probably going to consolidate here in the mid 3,000s for a while. Silver, on the other hand, so gold is 50% above its all-time high of, let's call it $2,000. It's trading at 3,300 now. It's broken out and run way past its all-time high. Whereas silver has been to $50 twice. Of course, the Hunt brothers in the 1980s got it to 50, and then in 2011, silver also made it to $50 an ounce, and then all the way back to 10. And so silver is volatile, but when it moves, it really moves. And it broke out. So 35, it's tested the ceiling of $35 probably 6 or 7 times since 2020. COVID is when all these metals had a big run, and they've been consolidating ever since. So it just broke through 35. It's traded 3 days in a row now above $35 an ounce, and been to 36.5. I think everyone's focused now on silver being the next big move. So it should, once it gets to its all-time high of 50, and then it breaks through that. Really when these things go through their all-time highs, there's no resistance. There's no chart resistance. And so Eric Sprott and many others are calling for silver to probably see a couple $100 an ounce. And so we're pretty focused on silver. And I think we're going to add some more legs to the Magma Silver stool. We're definitely looking at other projects. Mexico, the probably 2 best places in the world to find economic silver deposits are Peru and Mexico. They're both, I think, number 1 and number 2 biggest producers of silver in the world. Traditionally, Bolivia has been very good too, but the political climate in Bolivia is a little different, and it's not as friendly as Peru and Mexico are.
Yeah. You mentioned, I was going to ask, how do you find these projects? And you mentioned you get a lot of, obviously, people approaching you because you're known within circles, so you get projects brought to you. Right. How else do you find projects if they're not brought to you?
Well, the internet's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, generally that would be it. I would, and I do find projects on the internet. None that are in my public company now. This one came to me. I do believe. Here's, I think, a good answer. I do believe that all the best projects, or most of the best projects in the world, are already in a company, already in another junior explorer or a major. For that matter, majors have many projects. They focus on, they're focusing on their big projects. They have a whole bunch of little projects or, other projects in the drawer. So I think a lot of the real successful, and maybe not so much myself, but a lot of my friends that have been very successful in the industry, they know these big companies, these major companies, and they buy the projects from the majors. So I think, most of the projects that are viable and are great have already been in a company. They're just not being exploited in that company. For whatever reason, the company's got other projects on the go. They've got other focuses. They're focused on other commodities, or they just don't have the ability to raise money. And generally, that's been the case. Most recently, these, they're in companies that have 100 million shares out trading at 2 cents, and management's tired. Tired of telling the story, can't raise any money, and so these projects become dormant within these other public companies. So again, going back to, I think, Vancouver, there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 mineral exploration companies, and Vancouver's not that big, A lot of the people, the management teams, the accountants, the lawyers, they all overlap, and everyone's talking. And so we tend to find a lot of opportunities within companies that are no longer able to raise capital to advance the projects.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I will ask it. What commodities or metals do you think are going to be outperformers in the near term?
Right. So my favorites are silver, gold, copper, and uranium. Obviously, there's a big boom, and it's, again, some of these trends are fairly recent. I mean, Donald Trump, or the Trump administration, has recently fast-track approved a uranium mine. I believe it's in Montana or Wyoming. I'm talking something that would take 2 years usually to get approval, took 2 weeks. So they're fast-tracking nuclear. We have these, what do they call them, small, medium-sized nuclear reactors is all the trend. A lot of this AI infrastructure needs a lot of power. Facebook just did a deal recently with a Canadian company that's in the nuclear power business. So, of course, uranium is the feedstock for these nuclear reactors. So uranium's great. Copper is used in this, transition, metal and everything electrical. I mean, a Tesla has, I think, 4 times as much copper in it as a regular combustion engine vehicle. So copper, and then the transmission lines to get all this electricity where it needs to be. Gold and silver because of their monetary values. And then the rare earths are starting to kick up again, and that's related to China and the sort of, at least, war of words between China and the United States. China controls the rare earth. I think they control 90% of the rare earth industry. And rare earths are strategic. They're used in military applications and a lot of strategic applications. So the fact that the United States, there's only one mine in the United States that makes rare earths or produces rare earths, and they're not even really the most strategic of the rare earths. They're kind of the ma and pa, the regular rare earths, which it's neodymium, and I can't remember the other one, but I think there's 27 rare earths, and some of them are a lot of military applications. And so the governments are realizing that China controls these rare earths. That affects their military. So I think that those are all the better ones, and I'm sure there's others. But with war kind of on everyone's mind, metal is now important, and it's in everything, right? And people don't realize it. Where everyone thinks that that chair or that table or that lamp came from China. They don't realize that it had to come from the earth. It's metal is almost in everything. So mining is important.
How do you see the exploration sector evolving over the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's been very quiet for the last 10 years. We had a really big run from 2001 to 2011. Things were booming. Again, that sort of rising tide floats all the boats, I think. And then we had a 10-year hiatus from 2012 to 2022. We did have a nice little boom in 2020, all related around COVID and all the sort of free money that was sloshing around. But really, the industry has just started to get going in the last couple of years. Guys like me were in early, but that's what we do. But really, the public, the general public, has not come into the industry yet, and we're just seeing that happen now. So we're really at the starting gates of probably the last run was 10 years, so I don't know why this one wouldn't be 10 years, but let's say maybe we're a couple years into it. So I think we've got a pretty good run here with commodities, all hard assets, very, very exciting times. And you can start to feel it on the street here in Vancouver. Guys are finally making money, and it's been a long time.
Yeah. And lastly, what's the outlook for Magma Silver over the sort of short to medium term?
Yeah, so Magma is fairly almost brand new, really. We had to raise that money. We did the deal on those properties in January. Took us 3 months to raise the money, which, they were a tough 3 months. I mean, money raising is easier now. And I've had some other success. I founded a company a couple of years ago called Scorpio Gold, and its stock has been running recently. We financed that one at 10 cents as well, and it's trading at 21 or 22 today. And so that really helps. It's all the what have you done for me lately? All right, what was your last deal? The Magma is just getting going. We financed it at 10 cents. We raised $1.5 million. Stock's trading at 21 or 22 today. We're just starting to tell the story. Obviously this podcast, we're doing a lot of this type of work right now, getting the word out. And what is $3 billion worth of gold, or gold and silver in the ground worth? So our market cap today is it's 34 million shares out, trading at 20 cents. So it's $6.5 million Canadian, and we've got $3 billion US worth of gold in the ground. So I think that just a sort of a revaluation of people's minds. Wow, you got $3 billion worth of metal, and you're trading at 6.5 million market cap. I think there's going to be a revaluation in people's minds of what companies are worth that have that kind of metal in the ground. And then of course, we think that there's twice that amount of metal in the ground. We have to spend a lot of money drilling and working to prove that, and even prove that the $3 billion is there, to be frank. But I think a revaluation is what happens. You say, well, that company's got to be worth a lot more than $6.5 million Canadian. So so getting the story out there, getting everyone's head around how undervalued, that, and it's not just Magma Silver, it's many of these companies that have these, assets in the ground. And the interesting thing about mining and exploration is these assets in the ground are fairly safe. They don't go anywhere. If you go through a period where you can't raise money or the industry, COVID or whatever, that metal stays in the ground. Whereas, if you're in the tech business, you have IP and intellectual property, those people leave. One guy goes out the door and he goes left, and one guy goes out the door to a different company to the right. That asset disappears, or fairly quickly. I mean, maybe you've got some patent or something like that, but really, the intellectual property is gone. With the mining business, that's a beautiful thing about it. The metal is still in the ground. Yeah. And even some people argue, and we have this conversation often, like, do we really need to spend, a couple $100 million to get that gold out of the ground and then take it to New York and put it back in the underground in New York, Yeah. So there's got to be some value to just having that metal in the ground, knowing it's there. So like gold trades at $3,300 an ounce if you have it in the bank, and our company, it's trading at like $20 an ounce in the ground, or $15 an ounce in the ground. So I think there's got to be some sort of tighten up that spread a bit. Maybe gold should be worth $200 an ounce in the ground instead of $15 an ounce in the ground. Revaluing the company, getting that community agreement on the Ninobamba piece, going in, extending those trenches, and twinning or confirming some of the existing drill holes that Newmont did. Those are the things that are in the near term, in the next year, and then increasing this, adding to the portfolio. We're not going to go crazy and acquire a whole bunch more properties, but probably probably one or two more projects, maybe different jurisdiction, again Mexico. Build a company. Yeah.
Michael, thank you for your time. Appreciate you sharing your journey, talking about how you look at deals and what you look for, and give us obviously a macro understanding of what's happening in the exploration space, and obviously in the commodities that you've been speaking about. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they also want to follow the story of Magma Silver, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, the best right now would be magmasilver.com. Again, we're pretty brand new. We haven't really got our socials up and running yet, but of course we're working on that. We'll be on Twitter, we'll be on Instagram, but right now magmasilver.com is where most of our information is, including the reports that that Newmont did for their internal, some reports, independent reports that other groups have done on this project. They're all on our website.
Yeah, great. And we'll include those in the show notes, accompanying this podcast for easy access. So thank you for your time. All the best with all the deals that you're working on, and hopefully get a few more deals in the bag as they come. But I agree with you. Silver does look a favourable commodity over the next few years. Excellent. Well, great to see you, and maybe we'll see each other in November back in London. I'll be at 121 again. Yeah, certainly. Well, all the best, and we'll speak soon. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Take care. And you. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. We want to educate the mining industry, and obviously with this podcast that Michael's just discussed, it's obviously looking at deals, looking at particular commodities. So appreciate if you could share this far and wide. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.